Bacon time, everybody. Welcome to Dads with Bacon Talking Sports for this Thursday, June 27th, 2024. This will be our last show before the 4th of July. So since 4th of July actually falls on a Thursday, we're going to take that Thursday off, let everybody hang out and have fun with fireworks and all that good stuff and with their families. Go to some shows, parades, whatever you do for 4th of July, and then come back swinging away on July 11th, the following Thursday. So I'll bring the cast here. We got, these are the dog days of summer. So, we have our cast is always kind of hit and miss. We got Charles and Steve. Last week we had 6 of us on the show or whatever. And, but that's cool. We'll talk sports. And this week we're going to start talking about the NHL Stanley Cup Final. Now, it started. I am not nearly as big a hockey fan as either one of you guys or really anybody else, but I do enjoy playoff hockey. I was cheering like crazy for Edmonton just because I think for those that watched last week's show, first of all, I just thought it was cool that they came back from 3 games to nothing down, and I thought it would have been cool for a Canadian team to win, even though I love America. But it was it's hockey, so it's kind of their sport anyway. It's the way I look at it. But alas, they did not win. Florida came back and won Game 7 to take the Stanley Cup Final 4-3 and win Lord Stanley's Cup. So, Charles, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on Game 7? Who did you pick before the game? And give us your thoughts.
Oh yeah, I thought Florida was going to win it. There's a reason that only one team has come back from that kind of deficit. It's just hard. Most Stanley Cups don't end in sweeps either. It's just hard to beat a team 4 games in a row. But I really loved how Florida game plan for that. They were just like, you know what, we're just going to go out there and we're just going to shut their top 2 guys down. We're going to just play defense, and figure this out. We're just going to be old school about it. We're going to get it. And they did. The third period was incredible in Game 7 too. The defense in the third period was just insane by Florida. You got dudes diving in front of the net behind the goalie, taking freaking sticks to the face and stuff to just stop the goal. It was just insane. And then just the pile up right there at the end to burn out the clock. I loved it. It was a good, entertaining Stanley Cup Finals. It really was, and I like the way it ended. It was a good game.
Steve, how about you? Who are you thinking was going to win to begin with? And
I was Edmonton all the way. I really was, but it was kind of a roller coaster because we talked about last week. The main players for the Oilers really didn't show up at the beginning, and they really didn't show up at the end. And that's the couple of points that I took away from this series. Number one was that McDavid got the series MVP, yet his performance was the biggest in the middle of the series. He didn't have a great start. He didn't have a great finish, because I think if he had a great finish, the Oilers would have won the series. But Florida just did everything that they had to do to take him out of the equation, and they did. And that's what I think hurt a lot. And Bobrovsky got his legs back. He got back to where he needed to be to pull that off. I think Bobrovsky would have been the MVP had he not faltered as he did in those couple games, 4 and 5 especially. And I really just think that that's the magic of a Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, or the NBA Final, or Game 7 of the World Series, or even the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, is that everyone knows that is the season. That is the end of the line. There is nothing after the end of that game, which means you are going to see more things happen, as Charles said, that you wouldn't normally see. Guys laying out, guys taking one for the team. It changes so much. And that's where I think it really became a best of one. 3 had went to Florida. 3 had went to Edmonton. It was time to see who was going to pull it off in Game 7. And that is just to come down to the end like that, just like a 1-goal game, that low of a scoring game. It's just the perfect script So would I have loved to have seen Edmonton win? Absolutely. But Florida found the right gear at the right time and pulled off the win, which, I think if the game had been Edmonton, it might have been a little bit different. They might have found that extra gear. But I think with the game being in Florida, they really, even though Florida's not always showing up for their team during the regular season, they showed up in the playoffs and they showed up in the Stanley Cup final to support them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I would agree with, going back to what Charles was saying, how difficult it is to win 4 in a row. I honestly, that was the reason why I thought Edmonton would win it, is because, they were just on a roll. And I know Troy loves to talk about, when in the NHL, how you get a hot goalie and you can, you could ride that goalie for, the entire damn playoffs. And he's right. And they had a hot goalie for those 3 games that they won to tie it up at 3-3. And so that's one of the it is tough to win 4 in a row, but to me, it's just as tough to win 3 in a row, and they did it. So that's why I really thought they maybe would just ride that wave that they were on. So, all right, real quick, I just looked up. Everyone loves to do this. I know a lot of the national news were national media was doing this after Boston beat Dallas in the NBA Finals. Going to the Stanley Cup final odds for 2024-25. We've got the top. I'll just read off the top. Well, I'll say the top 6 teams, because there's 6 teams that are right here. Panthers at plus 900, Stars plus 900, Oilers at plus 950, Rangers at plus 1200, Avalanche at plus 1200, and Hurricanes at plus 1200. So, that's I'm going by. Well, they have it listed for like. The ESPN Bet, Fanatics, MGM. So those were the top 6 teams, but it's a little different depending on where you go, I guess. But those are the top 6 that are favored. What are you guys thinking? I'll start with you this time, Steve. Who are you looking for, Panthers to repeat, or who do you think would be a good pick to win next year?
I'm Dallas needs their moment in the sun. I thought they were going to make it to the finals this year. Once again, I would love to see Edmonton. Mm-hmm. I think they got one more crack at it, but I think they need, I don't know if Skinner's the goaltender that's going to carry them to the playoffs next year. I think they may have to look at that. And like Carolina, I get it. They are strong. They are good. They are whatever you want to say, but I think some of that hinges on if Jake Gensel either stays with Carolina or gets signed away. Vancouver is rumored as his destination. And I know Carolina besides him but if you looked in the playoffs, was that extra piece of the puzzle that really helped to propel them during some of their victories. But early on, I said, sentimental Edmonton, but I just think Dallas, I think is just going to continue that upward growth, that trajectory.
Charles, how about you?
Well, Canada's not going to get a trophy next year. It's going to get close. But as we know, the Canadians can't win championships. So I think that the Rangers are going to make all the right moves in the offseason that they need to get just a little bit stronger. And this will be the year for New York. But I agree. Dallas seems like I wouldn't count Dallas out either. I agree with you on that, Steve. It seems like they're kind of headed towards that direction.
Yeah, and I don't have, like I said, I don't have in front of me like all the players. I just happened to pull that article up, and it was posted like 9 hours ago, so I didn't even have a chance to read it. But the Avalanche is another one that Devin, who's been on our show before, he's actually married to my niece. Is a huge Avalanche fan. He's a huge hockey fan in general, but he's definitely an Avalanche fan. So I would be interested to see what he thinks about their chances. And they're one of those top 6 teams there. So anyway, all right, let's move on to what we love to do in the summertime, which is our way too early previews. But we started last week with the AFC East, and with our resident Steelers fan here, Steve. We'll do our AFC North preview this week. And then 2 weeks from now, again, I didn't mention it to you guys, but I think next week I know my wife would have a fit if I, had to leave one of our fireworks displays to come down and do this show next Thursday. So we'll just, in order to keep peace in my house, we'll take off next week and then come back on the 11th with our way too early AFC South preview. But without further ado, let's talk about the AFC North. Let's recap here real quick. AFC North last year obviously was Baltimore's division.
Oh yeah.
And then we had I forget how it. Let's see. Okay, so we had Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh ended up 10-7, and then the Bengals were 9-8 last year. So we'll start with you, Steve. And we'll start with your Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going.
I was going to leave them for last, Aaron.
Okay,
we want to get the worst out of the way.
No.
Come on.
No.
There's nothing to talk about. It'll be quick.
No. There's lots to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Bengals first. Is what I had on my cheat sheet.
We'll do that then. We'll do that. We'll
I was going to honestly, Aaron, I had them in the order that they were records last year. So Bengals, and then you go from there.
Sure.
So the Steelers would actually be second, not first.
We'll go with Cincinnati Bengals. We'll start with you. What are your thoughts on where they are right now as we are 5 weeks out of training camp starting?
Here's the thing of everything I've read about the Bengals. You've got things they've gotten better at. You've got things they've gotten worse at. And you can say that about every team in the division. But Joe Burrow, a healthy Joe Burrow, is going to define a lot of what happens with this team this year, because Joe Mixon's gone. That's going to be a running, Joe Mixon's gone. And Tyler Boyd, and that's one, Tyler Boyd literally grew up 10 minutes away from where I am right now in Pittsburgh. So all during the spring, the rumor was Tyler Boyd was coming home. Tyler Boyd's coming home. Tyler Boyd's coming to Pittsburgh. Well, he went to Tennessee. I think that what we're going to see, and they've had kind of change offensive line. And that's been their big change over this offseason. If Joe Burrow can stay healthy, it's going to be a team that I think's got some cogs that may work. But the thing that I'm looking at a lot is one of their draft picks from this year, Jermaine Burton. Because I think that he dropped in the draft because, I guess he's had some off the field issues or on the field issues, or I guess discipline is not his number one skill. But Joe Burrow is lethal if he has the right receivers around him. And that's the thing. Joe Burrow doesn't get as much attention as some of these other quarterbacks in the league because he plays in the AFC North. The AFC North, as we just talked about record-wise, everyone was over 500 and everyone was pretty much within 1 or 2 games of each other last year. So it wasn't like there was anybody explosive like the Ravens, of course. Hey, it's the Ravens, but we'll talk about them in a couple minutes. But that's the thing that when in looking at their schedule, that's the other thing too. And you're going to see there's a lot of the AFC North teams. They are going to see, last week I talked about the first 8. This week I'm talking about the last 8 because you'll understand that in a couple of minutes. Starting in November, they play the Ravens on the road, the Chargers on the road, the Steelers at home, the Cowboys on the road, the Titans on the road, the Browns at home, the Broncos at home, and then they're at Pittsburgh the last game of the season. So these schedules, as you're going to see, are division weighted at the end of the year. But I think that a healthy Joe Burrow is going to tell whether this team is even playoff. Whether they are at just like they were last year, 9-8, or whether they're contending. I don't think they can win the division, as we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But I think they got a shot at a wild card.
Okay. So, all right, Charles, how about you? What are your thoughts on the Bengals?
If Joe Burrow is your quarterback, you are a playoff contender. And that's how I feel about it. No, look, it only really went off the rails for Cincinnati last season because Joe Burrow got hurt.
Exactly.
I mean, that's all it was. He's healthy, expected to be completely healthy for the beginning of the season. With Joe Burrow back, these guys are a contender. They're the one team in this league that's going to give Baltimore a run for their money, or in this division that's going to give Baltimore a run for their money. I mean, I don't think they're going to get there, but they are going to be a wild card team. I mean, you've got so Joe Mixon is gone. He's gone to Houston. That's all right. The way that Cincinnati runs their offense, they've got Zach Moss, who was Jonathan Taylor's backup in Indy last year and got a substantial amount of playing time and excelled at the running back position when he did. He's going to be fine. They know how to produce good running back play in Cincinnati. It's part of what they do. So I'm going to be, fantasy-wise, Zach Moss is could be a sneaky good pick this season. But like Steve was saying, Jermaine Burton, that's a first round talent that they got in the third round because he's got attitude problems and whatnot. He's got some issues and all. But if he can get out there and he can play ball, then they don't miss Tyler Boyd one single bit, and that offense keeps rolling. The defense, it is what it is. It's good enough for this division, though, especially when you're going to be sniffing around Cleveland and Pittsburgh for 4 games. I mean, they'll have those easily. So, I like them to be a wild card game, and I like a wild card team. And I like them to be right in there in the mix with Baltimore. Baltimore, they've just done too much this offseason.
Okay, so let's start then with let's go to Cleveland. I mean, I think we all pretty much know. I mean, I think we'd all pretty much be in agreement with what we think about Baltimore. But what are your thoughts, Charles? You start this time on Cleveland.
We'll pull up their roster. The Browns. A lot of it's going to depend on Deshaun.
Yep.
I mean, he was a great quarterback at one point in time when he was on Houston. I mean, dude could ball. My daughter went to the same high school is him. I mean, of course, huge age difference there, but I mean, he's been a baller since then.
Yeah,
he can play. So if he can get his shit together in his head, then they've got a decent offense. I really like, their wide receiving core is pretty good. Amari Cooper is a stud. The dude does nothing but put up 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, that's just what he does. And every now and then, I mean, he will carry you for an entire game. Njoku is a great tight end. And he looked, when Deshaun was in last season, him and Njoku had a really good rapport. And I think that they'll build on that. And the better Deshaun plays, the better Njoku is going to look. And he's a great tight end. So, I really like that. And then they've got they brought in Jerry Jeudy from Denver. That's a boost. And I've always liked Elijah Moore. I know things went a little south for him, a little sour for him in New York, but that had to do with a bunch of BS. That wasn't because of how he plays. He's a good wide receiver. He's a good wide receiver 2, a great wide receiver 3. If Jerry Jeudy can step up as their wide receiver 2, then you've got 4 good weapons out there on the field. And we'll see my man Nick Chubb, the Bulldog himself, if he can come back from I mean, I'm sure we all saw it, a horrific injury. If he can come back and be healthy, then and do most of what he used to do, that's a solid run game right there. And I think they've got Jerome Ford, I believe. Got the who's there? Yeah, Jerome Ford is their backup running back. He's solid. I mean, he's no AP or anything like that, but he's a serviceable backup. He's a solid guy, that you can count on to do what he needs to do. So if Deshaun can put it together, and the Browns, for whatever reason, seem to have a pretty good defense year to year. Yeah. I mean, I guess you've got to be in that division. I mean, at some point you get tired of getting beat up on. You got to just keep that defense. You just got to keep reloading. And the Browns are actually pretty good at that. It's the offense that's usually their problems. So if Deshaun, gets it together, I mean, I could see him winning 10 games, this season, but it's not going to be enough to compete with the likes of Cincinnati and Baltimore. They're just not there yet. But I want to see Deshaun get it together because fantasy-wise, man, dude, he was a stud. Amari Cooper's been a stud for years now for fantasy. And Njoku, if you can get him in the late rounds as your tight end and Deshaun and him are clicking, that's going to be one of the best value picks around.
Steve, how about you? What were your thoughts?
Charles, man, you're a Southern guy. I get it. You don't watch AFC North football. I mean, I don't know where you're seeing that the Browns are going to do what they're going to do. Joe Flacco played better football than Deshaun Watson did last year. And now Joe Flacco's gone.
It hinges.
Deshaun Watson is not going to come back this year. I understand they've brought in some guys. They got Cooper, they got Njoku, they got Jerry Jeudy. They got some great guys there. But I don't see them doing what everyone seems to think that they can do. Why? And this is the problem. Their defense isn't half bad. Jim Schwartz is a pretty good DC up there in Cleveland. He does a great job. They don't give up yards. They give up points. They allowed the fewest total yards last year in the NFL. The problem is when they got to the red zone, opponents scored touchdowns 71% of the time. I know they brought some weapons in. Devin Bush is new there. I just don't see that coming together on the lake like some people do. I don't think Cleveland's going to have, I think they're going to probably be sub 500. I mean, and then once again, third toughest schedule in the league. Last 7 weeks of the season, they're on the road at the Saints, home against the Steelers, at the Broncos, at the Steelers, home against the Chiefs, at the Bengals, home against the Dolphins. And don't say anything about cold weather and the Dolphins, because Dolphins, I think, will show up in the cold weather as they have for some playoff games recently. And then they are at the Ravens. That is as you'll see with the other teams, the schedule makers did them no favors in the AFC North this year.
Yeah.
So I don't see Cleveland even making the playoffs this year. I think they have a great team. I just think last year the defense carried them. And honestly, Joe Flacco carried them because Joe Flacco did a lot of favors for them at the right time. I mean, Flacco went 4-1, even though Watson went 5-1. But statistics wise, Flacco was the better quarterback last year. I know you're a fantasy guy, Charles, so I respect finding those fantasy picks, but I think Cleveland is going to be the cellar dwellers of the division this year.
Okay. Well, what about, so let's, Steve, why don't we go to Baltimore? I mean, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that Baltimore is winning this division,
yes.
Unless, is there, I mean, well, give me your thoughts on Baltimore. I mean, is there a way they don't win this division? I guess
if everybody gets hurt,
there is.
If everybody gets hurt, that's the thing. Lamar Jackson and that's the problem, is that Lamar is bad in the playoffs. We are realizing that. Lamar Jackson does fantastic things in the regular season. Lamar Jackson gets to the playoffs and something just in his brain just takes a right turn or a left turn. And he doesn't understand the brevity of every one of his decisions. And that's where, his completion percentage goes into the toilet. His passer rating doesn't do very well. But here's the thing that I think is going to help him this year is that Derrick Henry is showing up in town. And you can say he's an older running back, but you know what? Those older running backs sometimes have done very well for teams that have wanted to get some experience. And I think if Henry can get some help from hopefully a revamped offensive line, but the issue is they didn't go out and find help on the offensive line this offseason. So I can't say Baltimore is going to do anything but win the division because Harbaugh is too great of a coach. Harbaugh surrounds himself with great coordinators, and Harbaugh just knows how to find the right thing, the right effort out of folks in his organization. When the going gets tough, he comes and shows up with his team. Their last 4 games are going to be home against the Bengals, at the Steelers, at the Chargers, home against the Eagles, at the Giants, home against the Steelers, home against at the Texans, and then home against the Browns. When honestly, I think there's some very winnable. I mean, November 25th, circle it on your calendars. You got the Harbaugh Bowl. That's going to be a game that I think we're going to get a lot of fun out of that game. But I don't think they're going to, last year's record, was 13-4. I don't think they're going to get to 13-4 this year. I think they may get to, 12-5. But I don't see them not being able to vault this division. I think they're going to, in a 3-horse race coming down to the wire, because I think the Bengals are going to be hot on their tails. I think the Steelers may, depending on how the first half of their season goes, maybe on their tails as well. But I think it's Baltimore's division to lose.
Do you think they do anything in the playoffs? I mean, do you think Lamar figures out how to actually – I shouldn't say he's won playoff games, but you think he figures out how to actually take this team to the next level?
Here's the thing. It's let's see how they revamp this offseason. They've not made a lot of splashes, but at the same time, Harbaugh always has something up his sleeve. And I think Harbaugh is realizing that the time's not on his side anymore in regards to this, because I don't know who he's going to have, once Lamar leaves, once this group, leaves, when is his time with the Ravens going to be up? I mean, he could be someone who coaches many more years with the Ravens. We don't know, but sure. I think that this, I think Baltimore, if Lamar, and I said, Derrick Henry could do a lot for him, even though, he's a running back, but you know what? Mm-hmm. If they can say, okay, give Derrick the ball, let's take some pressure off of you having to be making, you had 2 running backs last year. I mean, you had Gus Edwards and Justin Tillman. They were not bad folks, but you've got one back doing the work of 2 this year. And if they can say, hey, Lamar, like Derrick's here, or not, and trust him, like let's give him some touches. I think it's going to take some pressure off of him, and he may perform better in those key moments.
Well, didn't they lose? And Charles, I'll go to you. Didn't they lose though both of their running backs last year, or was that 2 years ago where both the running backs got hurt in the preseason?
Oh, they've lost running backs for like the last 3 years in a row.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, they just have not had good luck. So hopefully Derrick Henry can stay healthy, and and I mean, I'm not a Baltimore Ravens fan by any means, but I will say I do enjoy watching Lamar, and so if it. And I like Harbaugh as a coach. I really do. I'm not a huge fan of his brother. I don't mind him, but I don't hate him like a lot of people do. But I do like him in Baltimore. And like you said, I feel the same way about him as I do with Tomlin. Like I just until someone proves that Tomlin, is going to have a bad season, if it comes down to the coach, I'm siding with Tomlin and I'm siding with Harbaugh, in that same way. So go ahead, Charles. You said you thought there was a way that Baltimore could lose this division. Is it just based on injuries, or is there another way that you're thinking that?
No, of injuries, obviously, that's always something that can just, take your season out. No, I think that if Cincinnati can show up strong and beat Baltimore in both of their games, I think that there's a way. I think the Cincinnati is going to be tough competition for them.
Sure.
Baltimore, on paper, and Cincinnati on paper, to me, look very similar talent-wise. They're two different teams and they play two different styles, but talent-wise, they're both tops in the division for sure. The thing with it is I do think that Baltimore's got the edge on Cincinnati, and it is because they brought in the King Henry. Oh my gosh, what a running back! Now Father Time catches up to all running backs, but King Henry, man, Derrick Henry is built different. He is a different running back than all other running backs. And while Father Time is going to catch up to him, I think Baltimore was very, very smart because they signed him to a 2-year deal. And this guy's got 2 years of studliness left in him. And it's going to happen in Baltimore. And Baltimore, they didn't do a ton to improve their offensive line. The offensive line that he's running behind is better than the offensive line that they had in Tennessee, though.
Yep.
It's a better offensive line. This is going to be one of the best offensive lines that Derrick Henry has ran behind. And if Voorhees, who tore his ACL, I think at the combine, if he pans out coming back from the injury, because he was a highly graded offensive lineman coming out of the college season before the injury, and he dropped because of that. But if he pans out, that's going to strengthen that line. But Henry led the league in carries of 280 last season and didn't show any signs at all of slowing down. So I don't think this is going to be the season, because you can kind of see it. I think we started to see it with Eckler last season. You can start to see the signs when those guys, with Aaron Jones, you can start to kind of see the signs when those guys are slowing down a little bit. Also, do you know who, of course, CMC was first in rushing yards, but you know who was in second in rushing yards last season? The King, because he's still the King. This guy is going to change that offense. It's going to take rushing pressure off of Lamar Jackson, which will open up Lamar to run even more, but he has that safety net like nobody else. The guy's got a stiff arm that'll bury 3 people at one time. It's ridiculous. Now, Derrick Henry, and we were chatting about this, Adam and Ben and I earlier, has a potential, I think, to be a top 3 running back on the season this year and next year. For fantasy purposes, I am all over Derrick Henry. I want all the Derrick Henry that I can get in fantasy this season. I'll probably say that next season too. We'll see, but definitely this season. But also, Mark Andrews is going to be healthy. He's going to be back. That's Lamar's favorite target. It's always good when a QB gets his favorite target back. They've got Walker, Devontae Walker, brought in his rookie wide receiver. We've got Zay is probably going to step up and be their wide receiver 1. Kid's got a lot of talent. I don't think we're going to see a slump from him coming into his second year. I think he'll, open up things more. They've still got Rashad Bateman. A lot of people forget about him sometimes, but he always had flashes of like where you could just see like, oh, this guy's got some potential, but he hasn't really panned out. But we'll see if he can take a step forward or not. But with Walker coming in, I think that's a pretty decent, receiving core between Andrews and Zay and him. And the defense, they're just a perennial good defense. So I'm not worried about that. And I think in the end, you may be looking at Baltimore as if everything goes their way, a top 2 seed in the AFC. If things go a little south, it's probably still a wild card team.
Okay. So now we're going to go, we'll go to, actually, Charles, we're going to stick with you.
Okay.
I'll let Steve have the big finish with the Steelers. I want to give you a chance to start off or start your preview of the Steelers here, and then.
Oh no, I like it. Let me bury him so he can dig them back up.
Go right ahead. I got the shovel.
Okay.
I got the shovel ready, Charles.
The Steelers, you're gonna need you're gonna need like one of them like
Excavators.
An excavator. There you go, something like that. I'm sorry, but you know what? The Steelers are gonna suck this year. It's not good. They've been trending down. Somehow, look, the Steelers, for whatever reason, the football gods love the Steelers. They really do. And it's like no matter how bad the Steelers really, really at their core are, things go their way. And that's what happened last season. It's the only reason they were even in the mix for a playoff game. I mean, it's just things went their way. That's all it was. They do have a really good coach, but that offense and some of the drafting decisions and trade decisions that have been made over the last couple of years have not been good. And they really, really are a team that is in need of a huge, almost total rebuild. Their defense, of course, is good, but their defense has to stay healthy. But it's a change game, and you can't win on defense alone anymore. And their offense is going to be terrible. You've got two quarterbacks. Nobody knows who's going to be the starter. I feel like they're going to both be starters in the same game multiple times. I could just see him doing that. It may be a desperation play, but it might be their best chance to actually win games, going a little bit college style and using two quarterbacks. But who's going to be their starter is one problem. But who the hell are they going to throw to? I mean, that's another problem. They do not have a premier wide receiver one in their stable. They just don't. They all of their guys that could be their number one at best or a wide receiver two on pretty much any other NFL team. They're in trouble this year. It's ugly. I love Watt. I love the Watts. Those guys are great guys. It's an awesome football family. TJ's an awesome player, but he can't do it on his own. He can't. And the defense, they can't do it alone. It's bad. But at least you guys get a free quarterback for the seasons. So that's cool. It's always something to hang your hat on. When Russell Wilson goes out there and sucks, you guys can at least be like, well, at least we're not paying that fucker. Denver is.
Man, Charles.
Okay.
I was trying to find a book there to start reading while you were just burying this team. So let's start. Couple things. Number one, TJ Watt got robbed last year for DPOY.
Yes.
Robbed. To be in Vegas when they were announcing the awards right down the street from where I was standing and to see TJ Watt not win DPOY, I was like, I want to get over there and say who rigged this award, because that was Watt's award to lose, and he did not lose it last year. So let's start there, number one. Number two, their defense. I am just going to let that ride because Watt, Hayward, that's solid. I have no complaints, no qualms. They stay healthy. They're going to do what they need to do. They're okay, great. Let's talk about the offense. Arthur Smith joins after his experiment down in Atlanta, which is not bad. He did great things in Tennessee as well. Hey, there you go, Charles. I brought Atlanta in there for a reason.
Terrible in Atlanta. It was some of the worst display of coaching ever. Have fun with that. You should have kept Canada. He's better.
Nah.
And I blame Canada for all of the offense last season.
No. Here's what we got. We have a team. We have a general manager called Omar Khan, who we've called him the con artist because he has done some great things this offseason. He brought in some fantastic offensive linemen last year. He drafted Broderick Jones, who turned out to be a great selection. This year, he went offensive in the draft. Fanatu, Frazier, McCormick, they are going to be, first day, especially Fanatu and Frazier, are going to be first day impacts on this team. They are going to get a lot of help. I think their offensive line is getting stronger. Arthur Smith, from everything I'm seeing, is liking this offense. He's liking working with Russell Wilson. Do I want to see Fields get in? Absolutely not. because that scares the daylights out of me. Because I honestly think Mason Rudolph might have been a better backup than Fields is going to be. But we will find out. But Russell Wilson, I feel, is going to be a great starter for this team. And Russell Wilson, and I'm giving you a little bit of fantasy here, Charles. Keep Pat Freiermuth on your radar.
Oh, absolutely.
He is going to get a lot of attention in Arthur Smith's offense, especially with, you are right. I mean, we have George Pickens. He is not, he can turn into a wide receiver one. He may not be there yet, but, you know, we've got a couple other guys, Roman Wilson, who they, you know, brought, you know, as a rookie. You know, we have Calvin Austin III, and don't laugh. I mean, I think Calvin Austin III could be a great, you know, wide receiver. We also have Van Jefferson. So I still think there might, as I said, Tyler Boyd was, I think, the miss, because I think Tyler Boyd would have fit this offense. He would have fit the Smith-Russell Wilson connection. I think it would have worked, but he went to Tennessee for whatever reason. So bygones be bygones. I'm going to wrap up with what I think. Now, as I said, as we've seen, they are going to do hard knocks in season on this division. You can see why. And the Steelers' schedule is the toughest in the league this year. Their November is absolutely insane. They've got 9 games after November 1st. At the Commanders, home against the Ravens, at the Browns, at the Bengals, home against the Browns, at the Eagles, and then this, mark it on your calendar, circle it, do whatever you need to do. That game against the Ravens on December 21st is going to mean a lot, because I think, Charles, this is where you and me are going to disagree. That is going to be a game that is going to determine if the Steelers are in the playoffs or not. And if the Steelers blow that game, then they get the Chiefs 4 days later on Christmas Day at home, which could be a moot point game at that point, or that could be a game with major seeding implications for the AFC playoffs. And then they wrap up at home against the Bengals. I think they're going to chase a wild card. As I said, we'll see what the Bengals do. It could be Ravens, Bengals, Steelers all get in. It could be Ravens, Steelers, Bengals all get in. The Browns could surprise us all again and show up and make the playoffs out of nowhere. But I think it's the Ravens' division to lose. But I honestly think there's more tricks in the Steelers' bag than people realize. I could be totally proven wrong. But the Steelers organization has trust in Tomlin, as they just gave him an extension. Arthur Smith. Yeah. Like, this is the thing. Last year, at this time, as we're going into the beginning of training camp, the Fire Matt candidate chants were already alive and well, loud and clear. Get rid of the guy. People are giving Arthur Smith positive marks. Yes, there is no much. The basement, the floor was set pretty low for Smith to come in. But I think the Steelers have a lot of upside. I think they are going to challenge. And this is going to be a chance for them to prove their mettle as a young team in a lot of areas. And then some veterans brought in other areas to say, hey, we've got the toughest schedule in the league, but we're going to contend for a playoff position this year.
Okay, well, I will say this. I think this has the potential to be one of the more exciting divisions. Like you said, I mean, if Deshaun Watson can get his act together, I mean, and if Burrow can stay healthy, this could be the most enjoyable division to watch outside of my Packers division. But and I will say this. I will say, what was that, Charles?
So that's going to be a great division to watch. I love watching Detroit win. It's awesome.
I'll say the same thing. I'll say the same thing about the AFC North. I actually really like when Cleveland has a good year. Because it reminds me of my youth. No, it reminds me of my youth. It's like back in the good old days when they had Bernie Kosar and all those guys. I mean, they never won anything really, but they still at least were competitive and fun to watch. You know, like I still remember the days when we'd watch the Bengals beat the Browns 9-6.
Yeah.
This is one of the shittiest games I've ever watched. I'd rather watch a bunch of like 8-year-olds just bounce off of each other in the local football, high school football field than this. But now it's a fun division to watch. I will say this though, Steve, I hope you're completely wrong. I cannot stand Russell Wilson. I don't want to hear the fact that he was a Badger. He played for 1 year. He was a rent-a quarterback. He's not a Badger in my opinion. I can't stand that guy. And I hope he falls flat on his face. And I actually hope Justin Fields does well. I thought he got I thought he got shit on in Chicago.
Yep.
I mean, they basically used him as a punching bag.
Yep.
They loaded up for Caleb Williams is what they did. And I thought that sucked. Though I'm happy the Bears suck, but I thought that he got the shaft on this.
He did. He got a raw deal, and I'm glad that he found somewhere where, they've once again, everyone for the most part that you see, and whether they mean it or not, they say to the face of the cameras that the Steelers organization is welcoming, and you don't hear a lot of, sure, they did the players report card last year and the Steelers didn't perform as well with their facilities and things, but you hear folks talk about like just the organization, like the way Tomlin treats the players, the way that they get that respect in the locker room, that kind of stuff. But, this AFC North preview was not brought to you by NFL Red Zone and NFL Sunday Ticket, because for those of you not around AFC North territory, you're going to need that to watch all these great games, because I think, as you said, Aaron, it's going to be every week. It's going to be, especially at the end of the year, it's going to be knockdown, drag out football week after week after week.
I will say this real quick, and then we'll move on.
I want to ask you guys something about this, though.
Oh, go ahead, Charles.
Do you guys think that the NFL stacked the end of the schedule like this to benefit Hard Knocks in season?
The question is, I don't know if they had planned. I don't know if they planned for the AFC North to be their division of choice, or did it just, or did it just when the schedule came out, the NFL called up to HBO and was like, okay, you want to do an end of the season? Like, what do you got? And the HBO's like, did you see the AFC North team schedules? Like, there's no other division we want to follow at the end this year. It's going to be, as I said, it's going to be a bloodbath those last 6 weeks. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
It'll be an entertaining show.
Yep, it is. It's going to be great.
That's for sure. All right, let's do a couple. We'll do a couple quick buy or sells. Not related to actually, hold on before we go. Charles, do you have any now you and Adam always do your hopefully you guys are still going to be doing your fantasy football show this year on Fridays, which you did all last
absolutely.
We'll be getting ready for those soon. Any I mentioned this in our private group chat. Anything you want to say about like the AFC North? Any players that, other than the obvious ones, that jump out, maybe some guys that you think fantasy football players should be looking out for?
Okay. So I think for fantasy purposes for the Steelers, I will be taking chances on Najee. He's been kind of up and down as a fantasy running back, but I think they're going to have to lean more on that run game. And even though he's going to be in a committee, I think he'll get the bulk of the fantasy points. It may not necessarily be the bulk of the work, but the bulk of the fantasy points. So I like him where his ADP is. I don't think that it's a bad pick. If you're looking around right there and you're like, okay, I'm not really sold on any of these guys, then he could be kind of a safety net pick right there. Mark Andrews still going to be a top 5 tight end coming off of the injury. His ADP is slightly lower than normal right now, so I really like that. The tight end position in fantasy is kind of becoming a bit more and more important as we see guys like Sam Laporta, and we'll see with like Brock Bowers and stuff, with some of these guys blowing up at the top end of that position are making these guys, it's increasing the value for a lot of these guys. So of course I like Mark Andrews as a pick for your tight end. You can't go wrong there, especially if you're going to go with the setup you're trying to get like a top TE, a top wide receiver, a top running back, and maybe a top QB, like that 4-stack kind of game plan. I think he works well for that. Other than that, it's a crapshoot with the receiving core for Baltimore. But Zay Flowers, I really like at his ADP. If he ends up being a solid wide receiver one, then there's going to be a good bit of value there. So that's a guy that I'll be taking. And then, of course, the rest of the guys, Cincinnati, I really love Zach Moss. I think that Zach Moss, he showed what he could do in Indy last year covering for JT. I think that there's a potential for him to be slightly better from a fantasy standpoint, and he was a superb fantasy running back when he was the starter for Indy last year. Make no mistake about it. He was, a top 10 running back every single week that he was a starter, basically, for fantasy. So I really like him. Cincinnati's game plan kind of favors itself to produce really good fantasy running back points. So I really like him. He's not going off the boards as even I think a top 15 RB right now. So there's good value. If he pans out real well, then he could be somewhat of a league winner. Other than that, as far as in the division, if you've been playing for a few seasons, you probably know who all's good. And Joe Burrow's a great quarterback. Jamar Chase is a great wide receiver. You know what I mean? So it's and then Cleveland, Njoku, he's got a lot of value of a tight end. When Flacco was in, when Watson was playing, he put up superb points in fantasy. He was a top 5 tight end basically every game. He was a damn good tight end. When Flacco came in, that changed a little bit. He didn't get quite as much of a target share. For a high-end tight end in fantasy, you need a good amount of the target share.
Sure.
But if Deshaun's going off, then he's going to pan out real well. Amari Cooper's always a solid pick. But I'll keep an eye on Elijah Moore. I just think that there's something there. You can get him in, late in drafts. So, if you're set at your wide receiver and you want a high upside guy, take a flyer on him. It may pan off down the line.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's move on. I'm going to do a real quick kind of a buy or sell segment. We're gonna one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is the NBA draft. Now, we kind of mentioned it in when we met before the show here in our short little prep segment, and probably one of the most boring drafts that I watched the first few minutes, and I wasn't real familiar with a lot of these players. Like last year, we heard all about Wemby for 6 months, for crying out loud, before the draft. The one guy that we've heard the most about, at least for me, in this draft was Bronny James, who was drafted by the Lakers at number 55. So here's my, and I've been hearing a lot on social media. There's been a lot of hate toward LeBron James over this pick. And my opinion is, for people who are mad at LeBron James, maybe you should have more of your hate, quote unquote, directed toward the Lakers. So I guess buy or sell, Charles, in this particular case. You should be, if you're a Lakers fan specifically, because most of us don't care if we're not Lakers fans, you should be more pissed at the Lakers organization over this than at LeBron James.
No, I think they deserve equal pissiness.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both to blame. And this whole thing and the way that it's panned out is absolutely pathetic. Then the reports coming out earlier today about their agent calling up teams, telling them, look, if you draft him, he's going to go play in Australia. He's not going to play for you. What a dick move. God, come on. It's a business. You get drafted, shut up and play. Seriously, I would have been way more excited if the Lakers had drafted Caitlin Clark. This is ridiculous. This is a circus. God almighty.
Steve, how about you? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, Bronny, this is it's one of those things where you you didn't think it was going to happen, like they're never going to, they wouldn't waste a pick on doing this. And then you're like, oh yeah, they did draft Bronny. Like, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to see father and son on the court together. I mean, I don't think it's going to have the same excitement that Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. had when they played together, or some of these, other father-son combos. I mean, we'll see. Maybe Bronny's got something in him but I think it's just the way this is all played out. And then the fact that there were those rumors that they were going to throw $1 billion at him to go play in Saudi Arabia and all this other stuff, or, here in Pittsburgh, and Drew Joyce just took over as head coach of the Duke, the men's basketball team that went to the NCAA tournament this year. And he played with LeBron, under Keith Dambrot at, I think it was at Akron St. Vincent. And there were rumors that Bronny was going to come to Pittsburgh for a year and do that. And it's just like, I don't understand why they spent a pick on him. There were other players that they could have spent a quality pick on and then signed him as a free agent, because if they were already that close to the end of the draft when they drafted him, like it surprised me. But when I saw the team, I said, that's why. Like, I don't think that there were many other teams that would have taken a flyer on him, but the Lakers.
Well, and that's kind of how it was like, if anyone's going to take him, it's going to be the Lakers. Yeah. I guess my biggest thing is you don't even know. I know he was cleared to play for all last season after he had that cardiac arrest in the off season last year. But they can do whatever they want. I just think the Laker organization has become a joke. From hiring JJ Redick, off his podcast to now drafting. It's a sadder. You have two storied organizations in the Celtics and the Lakers. One just won a championship, and the other is pandering to their star player who is probably going to retire another year or two. So
the other thing too, Aaron, is are they going to become the second-rate team in Los Angeles if the Clippers with the new arena and their upswing? Could the Lakers become second fiddle to the Clippers if the Clippers continue their move forward like they've been doing?
So. So. It ain't even the Lakers anymore. It's the LA LeBrons.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yep. Okay, so my second buy or sell. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when the news first came out in our private group, but I don't think we talked about it on the show. Since we're not going to be doing a show next week for the 4th of July, I wanted to bring this up now. The Nathan's hot dog eating contest, of course, this year is going to be missing their star competitor in Joey Chestnut. But the news came out that he is actually going to be, well, first of all, he's going to be doing some, I just saw this today, that he's going to be doing some hot dog eating contest for a bunch of soldiers down in Texas at one of the military bases down there, which I actually think is really cool for him to do that. But then he and Kobayashi Kobayashi's coming out of retirement. Yep. Retirement from a hot dog. You got it. Coming out of retirement to compete on Labor Day on Netflix.
Yep.
Here's my buy or sell. That competition between him and Kobayashi will actually draw more viewers on Netflix than this Nathan's hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July. Steve, you start. You think they're gonna draw more?
Here's the problem, Aaron. One is pay-per-view basically, and one is not. Anybody can flip on ESPN on the 4th of July, as we do at our house, and watch the hot dog eating contest at no additional charge.
Yeah.
The question is going to be how many people feel that a Netflix subscription is worth, like, somebody who has Netflix, sure, they may turn it on, but I don't think Netflix is going to be selling tons of subscriptions to watch Chestnut v. Kobayashi for all the beef, as they're calling it.
Well, I guess, but by the way, I think that's a fantastic name, but I'm not sure if there's many people that don't have Netflix.
Exactly. This This ain't
Yeah.
cable versus
But
like
yeah,
premium anymore, man.
but
It's
but
streaming.
but see, it's the extra in my mind, guys. It's the extra step. You can flip on your TV and flip right to ESPN. You got to go to Netflix. You got to. It's just there's extra steps involved. That's where yes, you're right. Netflix has a lot of viewership. I just don't think people are going to be banging down the doors like they're going to be banging down the doors for the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight when it finally takes place to watch it. I mean, I think they're going to draw. I will be watching it. I mean, it will be on my appointment viewing for that day because I do enjoy watching, and I will still watch the contest on 4th of July minus Chestnut because I think it's going to make for a very entertaining contest this year because I don't think there's going to be a runaway winner. I think it's going to be a very tight race this year.
Charles, what are your thoughts? Do you think they'll all draw the Nathan's 4th of July contest?
I absolutely do. Look, anybody who's watching, who's like legitimately watching the Nathan's contest has been watching it for years because of these two guys. Yeah. Nathan's, y'all done effed up. Y'all gonna kick this man, this guy out of your tournament because of some sponsorship bullshit. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? First off, I'm trying to find it right now, but let's see here. Netflix viewership is about 72 million people.
Yeah.
Dude, ESPN's is probably not any bigger than that. It's probably like in this day and age, dude, it's just whoever you're paying money to. It's all cost you the same. You know, it's not, ESPN's free and Netflix is not. No, you're paying whatever streaming services you get your ESPN on. That's probably cost the same as your Netflix. I mean, mine's on Disney Plus. You know, I got the ESPN Plus and all. So I don't even think that that's a factor to your point on that, Steve, to be honest with you. But these are the guys we want to see. I will probably, on the 4th of July, I'll probably actually be working for a while. But I probably won't even have that on the TVs in the lobby. But I can tell you this. I will make it a point to watch these guys on Netflix because that's what I want to see. And that's what I think the viewership is going to go this year.
You know what? The interesting point, I mean, you bring up an interesting point too, Charles, because so you have 72 million people or whatever it is about that number that subscribe to Netflix. Now, I don't know how many households ESPN is available in, but I know there are a lot of people that have ESPN that don't watch it. Yeah, I mean, it's part of their service. So when you look at those numbers, you say, oh, well, it's on in 50 million households. Doesn't mean 50 million people are watching ESPN. Yeah. But if 72 million people are subscribing to Netflix, you damn well better know that they're watching it. I mean, it's not like Netflix is just some channel that's on their service that has 100 other channels. You know, so that's like a little bit different. I'll definitely, I'll be honest with you. I never watched I always saw the highlights of the hot dog eating contest. I never really watched it that much, but I'll probably make it a point if we're not doing something with family on Labor Day to watch those two. I just find that's fascinating to me that they put that together. And you got Kobayashi, who retired for health or to focus on his health, who's coming out of retirement now. And I didn't see how much they're getting paid. I don't even know if they published that yet or not.
Sure. All right, so for a little context, ESPN's got roughly about 2.1 million viewers, about 389,000 viewers per show for ESPN.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, they've really become it's you have ESPN for your live sports. I mean, that's, you don't really have it for Sports Center like people used to, that kind of thing. So it's changed.
I miss when Sports Center was good.
Oh, I do too. All right. So now that we have, like I said, 4th of July coming up next Thursday, one more question for you guys, and then we'll go to our 4 minutes on high thing to wrap up the show. Charles, for you, what is your favorite part or favorite thing to eat on 4th of July?
I mean, I'm a fat bastard. I like to eat anything you put in front of me. No, barbecue, man. Barbecue.
All right.
I love barbecue. And look, down here, I won't lie, I prefer a good Carolina style barbecue. I like a real vinegary barbecue. I'm good with that. But It's all, just, the hot dogs. We'll have like the Nathan's hot dogs and all that stuff coming off the grill. I love it. So good.
Absolutely. Steve, how about you?
I'm a hot dog guy. I mean,
Hot dog guy?
we the barbecue. What's that?
Oh, come on. Let's not go there. Come on, Charles.
I mean, a good burger too. We usually like to have some fun on the 4th of July with some different seasonings on our burgers and trying to kind of experiment. But just a good hot dog off the grill, with the fixins, it's just a good thing, So I mean, I like a good barbecue too, Charles. But barbecue is it's not as much of a 4th of July thing for our family.
Yeah, for us, it's here in Wisconsin. It's a brat.
I was saying,
we love a good brat.
There's a place right where we live, about 5 minutes away, called Pelkin's Meats, and you can get, honestly, like 70 different types of brats. It's fantastic. So, brats and potato salad. All right, so now my wife's telling me I need to wrap it up. She needs my help upstairs. So let's do our 4 minutes on high. Yeah. Charles, we'll start with you. What's on your mind? Then we'll end the show.
You know what? I'm not even going to take 4 minutes. I'm going to tell y'all what. So the Olympics are coming up. Everybody loves the Olympics. It's going to be very exciting. In the future, though, the Olympics are going to be in Brisbane in Australia, right? And right now, I'm really excited about this. Look, we're all dads. We all got kids. I got little kids, like 4 and 6 and all. Right now, actively, there is a petition. This is a legit, serious petition, and it is going around to make Bluey the official mascot of the of the Olympics in Australia. And I am all about this. Everybody, find it, search Bluey Olympic mascot. It will come up. Go out, sign it. Let's do this. Let's do this for our kids. Let's bring the younger generation into the Olympics because it is a lot of fun. The Olympics don't get enough credit. I love the Olympics. On my days off, I will stay up at night and watch the live stuff going on at like 3 o'clock in the morning when it's the Olympics. I don't care if it's badminton or the luge. Stuff is awesome. I love it. It's competition at its best, except for when those fucking Russians are involved. But other than that, it's competition at its best. So the Olympics are awesome. Let's do something to make it more fun for everyone. Sign Bluey into the Olympic mascot.
All right, Steve, how about you? What's on your mind?
Yeah, not going to take 4 minutes either. But first off, the editors have been in my ear since I was talking about the contest. It is called Unfinished Beef, not all the beef. So it is Unfinished Beef is the title of the Netflix special. So that is number one.
That might be even a better name, right?
Yep, I have a rivalry simmering for 15 years. So I really. Honestly, coming into tonight, Aaron, I didn't have much negative on my mind until about an hour, almost 2 hours now ago, when our wonderful United States soccer team decided to play Panama and forget how to play soccer. And they lose 2-1, and they in Atlanta, Charles. And, one of their big players got a red card for a very stupid foul. And I know we're not a very soccer-oriented show here, but it has just got me so frustrated as someone who has grown up as a soccer fan. And every time we think the United States is going to do something right, I mean, sure, they drew with England in the World Cup, which was great, but they just nothing. There seems to be a cloud that doesn't completely cover over the United States men's team, but kind of just hangs off on the side a little bit. But it always shows up at the wrong times. And tonight was not the time for it to show up. And it's not a fun thing to be a U.S. soccer fan. And that's why I'm so happy that training camp is just a few short weeks away, so we can think about the football that matters to Americans, because it's sure as heck the other football seems to not matter to Americans when, so, but that's what's got me upset tonight, Aaron.
Well, to add to that, did you see that the American was it U20
Yep.
football team?
Oh,
like the
lost
American
to
football.
American
Lost to-
football.
Yeah, lost to Japan, like
Japan.
41-20 or something like
Yep.
that.
Wow.
A
Yeah.
couple days ago. Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, all right. So my 4 minutes on high. I'm gonna real quick. I am going to talk a little bit about. I did this post last night. Last week with all the talk about the baseball Mount Rushmores with Willie Mays' passing and all that kind of stuff. I start thinking, of course, about the Packers, which I know people who watch this show are like, oh God, he's talking about the Packers again. But it made me think about that last week. So I was thinking about and I put a post on my Facebook profile last night about the Packers Mount Rushmore. And I wanted to go at it with a little bit of a different angle. And I mean, you could do this probably with any team. I just thought about the Packers because obviously that's my favorite team. They've been around for 100 years, so you got a long history with them. But a lot of times I feel like we focus so much on the players on the field, which obviously is understandable, but we overlook some of the players or some of the important people in the front office. And so I put together my Mount Rushmore real quick for the Packers, and I included two people that have never even suited up for the Packers or even coached for the Packers, but I thought that they were extremely important. Obviously, the first two were Curly Lambeau and Vince Lombardi. I mean, it's hard to argue those two as far as the history of that team. But I would argue also Bob Harlan, who's one of the former presidents of the team, who took over in the late 80s for the Packers, and was the one that hired Ron Wolf, and who also hired Mike Holmgren, who brought in Brett Favre, who brought in Reggie White, who brought in all these guys. I really feel like a lot of times, again, we focus on the players and we forget about the front office people who are able to put these together, because we always know and note the awful front offices, like for years, the Detroit Lions, who had what was his name as a GM, who kept drafting wide receivers every single year. That kind of, I mean, we beat the hell out of organizations who have bad front offices, and we don't let them forget all their mistakes that they made. But then it's like when they have brilliant front offices, then it's like all we do is focus on the players on the field. And I think a lot of these guys need to have more recognition. So anyway, that's mine. Wanted to wrap that up. I could have rambled on a little bit longer, but
well, one thing to add to that, Aaron, do not forget one other person that Bob Harlan basically brought into this world, who has become a soundtrack of our sports world, which is his son, Kevin.
Kevin, absolutely. Yeah. Kevin is fantastic. I mean, some of the best sports calls and the guy can do any sport. I mean, that's the cool part about him.
Yeah.
So,
but no, it's one of those fun things that you trace, I didn't know that for the longest time. And then I read an interview that he had a couple of years ago before one of the Super Bowls. And they talked about, hey, your childhood growing up, and then your dad being involved with the Packer. And I'm just like, I had no clue.
Well, the funny part was I didn't, for the longest time, I didn't put the two of them together. And then all of a sudden I'm like, holy crap. Yeah. He is the son of Bob Harlan. Yep. So crazy. Yep. Anyway. All right, guys, I'll let you guys go. Everyone have a great, safe, don't go blowing off any fingers or anything like that. And we will see you on July 11th. So 2 weeks from tonight. Have a wonderful 4th of July. All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.